So today I just wanted to take a quick look at 2014's Deliver Us from Evil. So to me, what makes this film interesting is the fact that obviously, I forget if it was just a book or a memoir that had been written, but you've basically got the story of a detective who basically by chance stumbles across the world of the supernatural, if you will. Apparently, it is very early in the film hinted at that he is gifted, his radar, as his partner calls it. He has a sense for whenever a particular type of event is taking place. He'll call into dispatch, he'll get the address, the location, whatever, and he chooses to deal with it himself rather than letting some other officer arrive on the scene. So those jobs, I guess you could say, that he chooses tend to be a lot more, I guess, a lot more of an adrenaline rush, if you will, which is perfectly fine by his partner because apparently his partner is an adrenaline junkie. And these events, as described by his partner, always happen to end in stitches for the guy who, I guess you could say, radars or hones in on them. So it's definitely interesting in that aspect, you know, the fact that he just has a sense for when people are in need of assistance. So eventually we stumble across this case with our detective, and we gradually come to realize that the young woman who has been arrested for attempting to murder her child is possessed. Which leads into a very interesting, obviously drawn out investigation, because otherwise we wouldn't have had a movie to watch. But apparently while her husband was serving overseas, one of the members of her husband's platoon had become possessed. Apparently there was some sort of a ancient writing on a wall. So when it's read, you're basically opening a door, which also leads us into the awesome use of the music of the Doors, which is played throughout the entire film because it is a loose reference. So I love that tie-in. I'm obviously not going to complain about it. You know, if you're a Doors fan, you obviously will not either. But once again, just very loose referencing, especially the particular lyric of, you know, break on through. So, you know, it lends itself very well. It doesn't distract or actually hurt the film. So, you know, it's a clever use of a story-moving tactic. And obviously for Pearsons who are not familiar with the music of the Doors, you know, you introduce a younger generation to a different type of music as well. So, you know, I'm not going to argue that one either. But, you know, definitely it does lend itself, you know, especially when, you know, literally when in film, speaking about opening gates and doorways and whatnot. You know, if it's a perfect excuse to use the music of Jim Morrison and the Doors, why not? But basically, yes, that's a running theme throughout the entire film. You do hear a lot of the same repeated lyrics, melodies, and whatnot. And so obviously this one guy who, unbeknownst all those years ago, had been possessed, you know, they're basically just kind of making the rounds. They're basically just kind of making the rounds, possessing other persons. And obviously this writing happened to have been on the wall at the zoo, which is pretty much, I guess you could say, how Miss Lady Ma'am got possessed and then tried to regain the single life, which failed because apparently the kid survived, which really must have sucked. But, you know, she's basically, I guess you could say, being held, retained. The family obviously knew what was going on. They called their family priest, and he kind of tries to skirt around the issue, keep Mr. Detective Man out of the way, so he can do his own thing. Obviously, the detective guy gets pulled in on this. And eventually, at some point in time, he does choose to walk away from the police force, I guess you could say, in order to walk another path, obviously something that he feels maybe more important or more of use. But yeah, I mean, this is basically, I guess you could say, essentially the story of how he came to who he would become, if you will. But yeah, definitely. So I think it's very well told. Once again, I love all of the investigational aspects of this. As we gradually, pull pieces together, we realize how things came to be. I thought it was a very well told story. I'm not going to lie. The first time I saw this, I thought it was a very boring movie. Yeah, so I don't know, maybe it's just all of the investigational bits of it just really didn't sit with me well at the time. But upon this rewatch, I really enjoyed the movie. I'm glad I was able to appreciate and see something in it that I really liked. But yeah, I mean, I think it is a really great story, even if you're not into like the whole supernatural aspect of it, or maybe if you just like cop movies, cop shows, whatever. I mean, it does lend itself to various genres, so potentially yes, depending on your interest, it's very likely that just about anybody can enjoy this film. It's not overly gory. It doesn't have high horror elements or anything. There's a lot of darkness, there's a lot of tension, but there's not really that scare factor, except for what you build in your head for yourself, which I think is good. I think they just left it open to where the audience member can, I guess, bring the scares themselves. You let the mind wander. And as previously stated, some people, their minds wander a bit more than others, and they may scare a little bit more easily, so maybe the fear might sit with them just a little bit longer. But I think when you leave people to their own devices, that makes the storytelling much more effective, in my opinion. But that is pretty much all I have for you guys today on this film, and I will talk to you later.